Bonjour Rog fans, and today we are TinFoil talking about how the flat earth movement, why did you say movement? It reminds me of going to the toilet, is subverted by fake scientists and shills. That's a good word. I was going to use something that sounded like Bonfartist, but I thought probably better not to. Yes, so the Rods did some research. The Rod Science video, I don't know what I'm pointing for, it's completely pointless. Rod Science did a video about is the Earth flat or is it a ball? And that was quite interesting. But in order to research that, I had to first of all dig into both sides. And there were flaws in both theories, which have not been resolved. But what was quite interesting was the amount of false science being promoted to the people who are researching this. Except there weren't, because that's that, isn't it? Oh, that's that, hello. Oh, got me Android this time, yeah. People who are researching this, the amount of false science that they were being given by people who they are led to believe are scientists, who are actually not. They are shills and fake scientists and money-making parasites. One person comes to mind. I've got to mention the name of the channel because I need you to look at a couple of videos. D Murphy 25. Now it's on his channel. There's a lot of videos, but he does an interesting one further down the list, which is flat Earth people versus scientists. Watch that one first. It's very important, and ask yourself a number of interesting questions to entertain yourself, such as why is he only picking scientists who are undergraduates or not actually experienced in science? In other words, they haven't passed their. It hasn't been long since they passed their course and got their degree. Why is he not asking an experienced scientist who's been doing it for 10, 20 years? Second one I wanted to watch out is he did a 2018 lecture at the Flat Earth Convention. I think it was 2018. And I watched this because I had to research both sides for balance, obviously. And I was stunned. Because what you'll notice in the first film, when it's him versus the scientists, he talks a lot of physics, a lot of science, and a lot of physics, a lot of detailed physics knowledge. I think, oh, that's nice. What he does in the 2018 lecture is, if that isn't just money-making fake science shillery, I don't know what is. He's doing his talk and he's waffling on, and he says, gravity doesn't exist, he says. And he shows a film from the 60s, I think it is, with the space-time model of Einstein demonstrated by having a sheet of rubber stretched across like a trampoline and putting a ball in the middle. Because it's nonsense, he says. He says objects fall to the ground. He says not because of gravity. He says I call it drop-a-tee. Drop-a-tee, drop-a-tee. So I call it drop-a-tee, he says. And what it is, he says, it's atmospheric pressure that causes things to fall to the ground. Oh dear. Oh dear. So yeah, over 100 years of aviation does seem to laugh hilariously in the face of that utter Shatner. What utter Shatner? Can't believe he said it. I thought, why have you gone from science to mixed with deception and complete lies? It's a complete lie. I thought, how can you stand in front of a group of people, with 2,000 people, and talk complete Shatner when you know it's false? You know you're lying to them. This could only be the only reason. Because we know in airplanes, we know the higher we get off the ground, the thinner the atmosphere gets. Yeah, less atmospheric pressure because there's less atmosphere. As we go towards the ground, atmospheric pressure increases quite a lot. Hence, one of the great mysteries of the world, why is it that when we drop an object from a great height, it accelerates towards the ground? Now, if it was atmospheric pressure, it would slow down because the atmosphere is getting denser and denser and denser as it closes to the ground. It doesn't accelerate. It reaches something which is known as terminal velocity, which is the point where it's the maximum speed a falling object can achieve based on its mass and its density in relation to the amount of air pressure it's pushing against. That's science fact. That's fact. It's proven. It's been proven hundreds of thousands of times. There are loads of experiments. People in schools, even as I jabber on today, people in schools around the world are doing a standard experiment with a measuring stick, dropping a stick from a height with a camera and measuring, and using the marker, the measuring mark as it falls, to measure the rate of descent, how it increases in speed to reach terminal velocity. It's well known. In order for objects to fall by atmospheric pressure without whatever it is that causes them to accelerate, the atmospheric pressure would have to be very light here and very thick high up. And that doesn't work that way. Again, just lies. Now, there's a group of these, I nearly said it then. I nearly said bomb fartists, didn't I? A fake scientist, shills, parasitic morons, living off people's ignorance. It's a bit like government, doesn't it? Called Globebusters. Now, the guy who allegedly founded this, called Mark Sargent, is a total and utter shill. There is nothing scientific or genuine about this guy at all. He actually, rather intriguingly, he seduced a very well-known researcher called Patricia Steer, who's done some very interesting and very thought-provoking stuff, and nearly destroyed her completely and her entire credibility with his utter shillness and his false science and his utter horrible fake stuff that he throws out. So much so, not only did she completely eradicate herself from anything to do with this, but she completely deleted her YouTube channel voluntarily. She didn't want anybody to relate her with him, because it's just shocking what he comes out with. Now, he was exposed, as was the entire Globebusters scam system. If you've got any basic scientific knowledge, just watch one of their experiments. If you don't reel on the floor laughing at how unscientific it is, you just got to watch a few more of them, because there's no science in there at all. There's no scientific method. I'm going to stick poles in the ground to measure the shape of the Earth. I mean, seriously, how dumb do you have to be to think that's going to give you a shape of an object? Because topology tells you it ain't going to work. Basic geometry tells you it ain't going to work. But if you're a money-making parasitic shell, it's always going to be an experiment worth doing, isn't it? Get people to pay for it for you. He was exposed in this beautiful documentary called Beyond the Curve, which wasn't biased. Now, the people who are obsessed with this, the hardcore people, they say, oh, he was biased. When you watch it, it's not a biased documentary at all. It's actually a very, very balanced documentary, because what they do, they give Mark Sargent, at the very least, 5 minutes at a time of uncut, unedited talking. Just focus on it. And he hung himself in the first 10 minutes, because he shows these books he's got on his bookshelf, and he's got things like alien autopsy and JFK assassination and reptilian aliens and all this sort of stuff. And he says, I went through all of these conspiracy theories, he says, and Flat Earth was the last one on the list. It was the last one, the only one I hadn't looked at. That, to me, does not say science. It does not say a genuine interest in the phenomenon. And it does not say to me somebody who's interested in doing something for the learning and the knowledge and the sharing. That says to me, where can I make the cash? And he does. And later on, their entire farce of science, which is just a horrible way to manipulate gullible people who are trying to answer questions they cannot get the answers to, and believe falsely that these bunch of fake scientists are going to provide them with the answers. All they provide them with is give us more money, we'll produce you more non-scientific experiments that actually promote absolute shash as opposed to science. Well, anyway, so somebody bought them a $20,000 laser gyroscope because they were going to do an experiment, and I think pretty much the guy said that doing an experiment to prove that the Earth doesn't move, doesn't rotate. Well, that isn't science. Science is we're going to do an experiment to see if there's any movement of the Earth. That's science, because you're not looking against. You're just seeing what's there. That's science. When you start loading the experiment in a particular direction, it's not science anymore. Because you're only looking for that. You don't care if that isn't true. You don't care if this is true. You're just going to try and prove this, aren't you? That's not science. It's not a scientific method. So anyway, I learned this thing. They switch it on, did the experiment, and they measure the movement that was at the other people say is there. Exactly, I think it was 11 degrees per hour. They measured it perfectly. So then they put the same thing, the gyroscope, into this Gaussian tube or something, some sort of shielding, got the same result. Put it in another form of shielding, it was even more expensive, even denser, got the same result. Later on there's a party. Well, the documentary crew, they weren't really filming anyone in particular, they were just walking around. And this bloke, it wasn't Mark Sargent, it was one of the other scam people, had his microphone still on. And the documentary crew put it in, and I thought rightly so. And he said, and some bloke walks up to him and he says, "How did the experiment go?" And he says, he says, "Well, we were checking for movement and rotation of the Earth," he says, "and we did the experiment 3 times, and we got the results that we were supposed to get." And the bloke says, "What are you going to do about that?" He says, "Well, we can't publish it, can we? Because it's not what they're expecting." Brilliant. Hung themselves. Brilliant. And that's the mentality of these people. So watch that as well if you can, behind the curve. It's very good. Because it's a balanced documentary. And it just shills. These people are just shills. And it's pretty sick, actually. And the other thing they're saying now is that the reason that in 2018, early 2019, this was all over the news, and celebrities were coming forward and saying, "I believe that the Earth is this. There's absolutely no way, shape, or form it can be that." The reason it's not on the news anymore, and the reason no one's talking about it, and it's been hushed, and this has been invented to hush it. Incredible. Anyway, as usual, comments down below. I can't wait to see what you think when you watch these videos, blokes, Dean Murphy's videos. You got to tell me. Is it science or is it Shatner? Yeah. And that's no disrespect to Shatner because I like him, but I can't use the other S word, can I? So, comments down below. And don't forget, it's not reality. It's YouTube.